I'm Nick Shell, a certified Enneagram coach. I wonder if this is going to be a long video because I wrote down in my Enneagram journal an entire page that covers my complexes as a counterphobic 6-wing 7. And I'm making this video because if you are a 6, even forget what wing or whatever, but just if you're a 6, there's a good chance you're going to relate to a lot that I have to share here. I think the stereotype when you get new into understanding Enneagram, the concept of being a 6 is that you're constantly worried about your physical safety. For me as a counterphobic 6, I'm not. That's not really one of my main things. For me, I'm fearing lack of closeness with people that are near me. So close friends, or specifically family. If I feel that I am going to risk not feeling close to them or my relationship is going to be distance, then that tends to be a lot of where my triggers come from. So let's get into it. Of course, I do want to remind you how YouTube works. There's an algorithm that if you hit like, it means more of my videos will show up in your feed. So if you don't want this to be the last time you ever see me talk about Enneagram, hit like, and then it'll show up more. I'm not asking you to subscribe. That's too much. You may not be ready for that. Maybe just a little bit more, but not a lot more of me is what you need. All right, here we go. My complex is an Enneagram 6, specifically counterphobic 6, which means I address my fears, and a lot of times that looks like an 8, Enneagram 8. A lot of times it looks like anger, but it's actually fear. Here we go. My complexes. And I want to say one more thing before I get started. These are not necessarily truths, okay? I myself can be an unreliable narrator of my own life. All of us can. So these are complexes I have, but they're not necessarily truths, if that can make sense. Here we go. My complexes. Feeling insignificant, incompetent, and unsafe, which I've made a video before talking about how I do have a 5-wing. That's how I feel when I'm in crowds or in a line or like a theme park or there's a lot of people. It makes me feel insignificant, incompetent, and unsafe. So if you want to check out that video, that exists. So that's one of my general things. Like when I don't do well in general being around crowds or lines because of feeling insignificant, incompetent, and unsafe. Another one is a complex that I am not worthy of my family's time, energy, and emotion. I'm all about being involved. But if I don't feel that that's being reciprocated, then it makes me think I'm not worth it. All right. Another that I have talked about in other trigger videos is I can't feel relaxed or happy or even go to sleep if everyone else is not. So it's always a feeling kind of the thermostat of the room. Is everybody happy? All right, I'm happy. Because the 6s are very reactive. I wish I wasn't, but we are. Everybody else needs to be happy before I can be happy. Everybody else needs to be asleep before I can go to sleep. Because ultimately, in my mind, I'm providing the stability and structure for everyone else because that's important to me. But then the trade-off is I can't just feel a certain way on my own. It's very difficult for me. Another complex that I will be perceived as lazy or uninvolved. Another that I am available to help but no one wants my help. Another is that I feel taken advantage of by absorbing other people's negative comments, but I don't make my own, other than admitting that I feel unsafe by that negativity. A complex that my feelings will be dismissed. So are feelings real? Of course they are to you. Are feelings factual? No. Are they logical? Usually not. But it's important to me that when I am #brave enough to say how I actually feel and understand how I feel, I want to make sure those feelings are not dismissed. Another one, I will have to sustain imbalance going along with what others want to do due to my desire for community at the cost of me feeling uncomfortable, which leads to resentment and no one being happy. So I find myself a lot of times, the group wants to do a thing and I smile and say, yeah, okay, let's do it. But that's the initial 6 coming out of me. I want to be seen as loyal. But the very activity may involve lines or crowds or whatever freaks me out. And then I just get quiet and angry. And then no one's happy. So I have to learn. And sometimes I have to be a little bit of less of a yes man. It's a balance though. I want to be supportive, but if it's going to trigger me, that's not good either. That's something I'm sorting out. Another one, complex. When I feel my boundaries are being crossed, I become quiet, resentful, angry, controlling, and everyone suffers. So I think 6 is one of the numbers where you're probably more aware of your boundaries than other numbers. I mean, I think like 2s, for example, they struggle with having boundaries at all, and they end up being taken advantage of and walked over, etc. But for me, I'm all about boundaries. And it's important that I express those to other people. For example, we don't often have visitors in our house. We rarely have people sleep in our house because my home is one of those boundaries. I don't do well with people coming into my own home. It sounds weird, but certain people are that way. So I have lots of boundaries, and that provides structure for me, and it makes me feel safe and secure because I do have all of us 6s do have a self-preservation subtype in there somewhere that is all about that order and structure. And for me, that's where that comes into place, is the boundaries. Another complex, feeling that my emotional needs are not worthy of being addressed. Another, that my family won't choose me. I've talked about that a lot. Another is unmet expectations lead to resentment. So now that I'm aware, it's my responsibility to share those expectations. I made a video about restaurants being a trigger. Well, it's easy to go to a restaurant or even a theme park, for example. Anytime you spend money, more money than normal, on an event, it better be good, because if it's not, nobody's happy, and then you've wasted that money and that time, and well, then you should have just stayed at home. So ultimately, that's the whole page of my list of complexes. So now I understand that about myself. Now, granted, I haven't filled up the whole notebook here, so let's assume there's more where that came from. But it's taken me a year since becoming certified in Enneagram to understand all this about myself. So if you are a 6, just know, lucky for you that you already know that, because for so many of us, it's very difficult to understand your actual number, especially when everybody else says that they think you're this other thing, and especially when you take multiple tests. I mean, out of all the online Enneagram tests I've taken, none of them ever said that I was a 6, not one. I usually show up as an 8 or a 7, and sometimes a 3. Never a 6. And people who know about Enneagram don't see me as a 6. It's not until I started getting to talk to them about what's really going on. But see, that's the thing. I had deceived myself for so long. And when you deceive yourself so well, you're probably going to most likely, definitely, deceive other people as well, and who you really are. All right, I would love to hear from you. Enneagram is my thing, so I love conversations about it. Please talk to me in the comments below.